the traces of the first civilization of Earth in America and the inscription of the Greek alphabet. Kyphis, look at what's on the lintel of that gate, Kyphis. This is not the first time we've heard about ancient Greeks in the New World because they had a trade route. They were going into the Azores that were supposedly, at the time before continents moved, really split apart, and it was about Younger Dryas age, about 12,500 years ago, around the time the ancient Greeks said Atlantis had sunk. But we have also the fact that they had trade from all the Mediterranean up to the British Isles, Scandinavia, Faroe Islands, Iceland, Greenland, Newfoundland, and then all the way down towards the eastern coast. And they've even found Minoan DNA in the native Indians around the Great Lakes area of North America. But they had trade routes as well, let alone the other things that we were told about air travel. But even the sea voyages were with stops about a day or two after a day or two of sailing. But the thing that they found were the fact that they used the Greek alphabet. And that brings to mind what happened in the late 18th century when one of the New England University's professors wrote to the chiefs of the American Indians in Greek, in ancient Greek, using the ancient Greek alphabet. He was a Grecian, so he knew how to write to them in Greek. He was warning them about the change of their culture with the Western civilization and influence. Kindly support my Patreon account since YouTube has again demonetized my YouTube channel. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below. British Colonel, archaeologist, cartographer, and explorer Percy Fawcett, accompanied by his son Jack and a friend of his son, Riley Rimmel, had undertaken on his behalf to explore the unknown and inaccessible lands of the vast interior of Brazil. At least 2 million square kilometers was still virgin land at that time. Fawcett hoped that this journey, if he managed to complete it, which did not happen as he was mysteriously lost in the jungle in 1925, would help decode the history of world civilization. In 1720, the Portuguese, who had advanced considerably inside Brazil, discovered in a country where no Europeans had entered the majestic ruins of a once prosperous city which had been destroyed thousands of years ago and which proved its existence of an ancient people advanced in level of civilization equal if not superior to the ancient Egyptians. Fawcett and his companions went there to find this prehistoric city in order to ascertain whether Brazil, which was once an island, was indeed Atlantis, which Plato describes, and whose existence was not disputed by a large group of sages. According to Fawcett and others, Brazil was part of Atlantis, parts of which sank in the Atlantic Ocean. Prior to this subsidence, the seabed had risen between the two islands which once formed South America. Thus, the huge Andean mountain range is invisible. The interior of Brazil, according to geologists, is the oldest land that is among the first, if not the first, to emerge from the waters, they said. Therefore, the cradle of the world culture should be sought there, in Brazil, they said. Recent discoveries in Mexico and Brazil tend to prove that civilization came from the West, that is, from the Americas, and then spread to Egypt and Europe. The traces of the first and most ancient civilization then were found in both Mexico and Brazil, in volcanic areas, which convinced that these first civilized countries were destroyed by terrible earthquakes and floods, etc. Geological catastrophes. Traces of this culture had remained, and the greatest hopes for their discovery were concentrated in the heart of the Brazilian jungle. There were also snow-capped mountains, which no Europeans knew of, and where, according to the traditions of the indigenous tribes, white people lived unknown how they got there. These mysterious people, according to Fawcett, were probably degenerate remnants of the first civilization on Earth. All the information so far about the ruins of a huge ancient city, ruins seen by Portuguese explorers, seemed at least curious. Of the gates of this ancient city, only one was still standing proudly in its place. It consisted of 3 colossal monoliths. In fact, in the huge horizontal monolith, which rested on the other 2 verticals, which is very reminiscent of the cyclopic walls, there is an enigmatic description. The inscription. The inscription became impossible to read, but the similarity of its symbols with the characters of the Greek alphabet is astonishing. How did this resemblance come about? A true mystery for archaeologists. Between Brazil, part of which was equated by many with the mythical Atlantis, and Europe, there was perhaps communication in ancient times. No doubt. Not only that, but immigration from Brazil to Egypt was considered possible. In fact, the white inhabitants of the snow-capped mountains of the unknown land, quote unquote, in the interior of Brazil, bear the characteristics of the Egyptians. So in prehistoric times, whole populations were able to migrate from one distant country to another, but how did that happen? The traces of the first civilization of the earth in America and the inscription on the ancient gate with the Greek alphabet intensify a mystery which still seduces and silently seeks its solution. This news was published in the paper Ethnos National on June 15th in 1925. I've translated this for you from a Greek article. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support.